So I recently received a comment in relation to do with something on immigration, etc. And I felt it's important for me to cover this, especially in relation to do with today's economy and on the topic of individualism and collectivism. Collectivism means you're subordinating the rights of individuals and you're placing the group and their rights, our so-called rights, above the individual, where it's based on the collective and it's based on communal ownership, which is why full-blown collectivism is speaking about communism. The state becomes the main element of the economy of collectivism. That's the reality of it. That's the world that you see of collectivism, and nowhere in recorded history will you ever see, to any extent of collectivism, even within mixed economies, a government serve you, which is the very reason why when it came to the likes of Mary Black and her argument of Scottish independence, for example, I just cringed because she was saying, oh, we'll finally get a government we vote for. No, you won't. You simply won't. And the reason why you won't is because collectivism. That's it. There's no difference between, depending upon the state in one government to depending upon the state in another government. Governments are governments. They are the cause of the problems. Did you know that under individualism, you can have people working collectively? Under individualism, you could have businesses who decide to work collectively together. That's not what defines collectivism. This is why people are so confused, because they just don't understand individualism and collectivism. Why is businesses or people working collectively together under individualism still individualism? Because each and every single one of those individuals part of the collective groups, etc., each one of those individuals have the economic independence to decide to leave it and go and work for themselves. A lot of people misinterpret individualism and collectivism. They oversimplify it because they just don't understand it. This is the issue, because I'm just going to go on to the comment, and it's in relation to do with the immigration. Okay, let's start with the first problem. The first problem is misconstruing what a capitalist is. It's not as simple as just saying a capitalist is someone who just simply runs business and seeks to aim profit. Okay, fair enough, if you want to go down that line. But I never knew a capitalist was an anti-capitalist. I never knew a capitalist was someone who rails against the capitalist system and seeks socialism to beat out his competition. I never knew that was a capitalist, but there you have it. This is the issue, because you speak about the capitalists seeking all the wealth and power for themselves, etc., everything to do with the banking corporate elite, etc. These very people who were lobbying government for more socialism, I don't call them capitalists at all. They're just anti-capitalists. On to the second issue that you addressed there, was something of thinking that collectivism is somehow going to be the solution to the problems, where you think it's a case under collectivism, people come together and decide. That isn't collectivism. But I know what collectivism is. Collectivism is where you place your dependency upon the state becomes the leader, the state becomes the owner of your life, and you are nothing other than a servant to the state. That's the real world of collectivism. Not the world that socialists imagine to be. And it doesn't matter even if the, collectivists put in place some democratic system to, create the illusion that you have choice, to create the illusion that somehow you're powerful, because that's essentially what they do. They do that to people because people are gullible enough to believe it. You show me one single mixed economy on the face of planet Earth where governments didn't go and do their own thing. You've seen it all over Norway, you've seen it all over Sweden, you've seen it all over Denmark, never let alone Finland, and every single country across planet Earth where you've seen a mixed economy. Not once have you ever seen a government serve the people under any form of collectivism to any extent. But you're not living under some system of capitalism. So I don't know where you're going with that argument. It doesn't make sense. I'm sorry, it just doesn't. Also, a lot of the wars are funded with drug money. Example, Iran-Contra and the opium coming from Afghanistan fund a lot of useful opponents, etc. What on earth has that got to do with capitalism and individualism? How else do you think they fund the wars? Who do you think creates the wars? Governments. Who funds the wars? Governments. Where does government get the money from? Stealing it from the taxpayer. What's that got to do with the market? It's not the market that decided and said, oh yes, let's, finance a war. Unless, of course, the country was defending itself. You go through all the wars throughout the 20th century, and every single one of them, you can point to that of the government. This is an oxymoron, right? It's every bit as oxymoronic as believing in the idea that you can somehow, have socialism and have anarchy at the same time, or have socialism and have a democracy at the same time, or have socialism and have market at the same time, right? All of that's just an oxymoron. And the oxymoron that's been pointed out here is thinking that you can somehow have a government that serves you and somehow believe that you can prevent all of these wars at the same time whilst having collectivism. In fact, I would go as far as to argue that's more oxymoronic than libertarian socialism. As you go on, and as you said, how does libertarianism help with the problem we have of children being indoctrinated into the transgender madness, which again benefits capitalists selling them shit, and then there is the big pharma making billions from the hormones. All they're doing is making a profit from selling goods to people, right? It's not their fault for this issue, right? Regardless of what you say, it's not their fault. They're not the cause of the problem, right? So eliminate that. They've got nothing to do with it. You can't conflate the two as if they're the same thing. People simply running business and selling goods, nothing to do with it. The real problem is this corporatist system, however, and subsidising, etc., and the influence it has on businesses, and of course the stuff to do with the propaganda. You can see that with the Black Lives Matter movement and the pressure that they put on private companies and the cancel culture that came out of it and everything. But this is what I don't understand. You go on about the whole thing to do with the transgender issue. I've got nothing against transgender people. And I've got nothing against those who wish to support, gay marriage, who are gay and wish to, for whatever reason get married. That's up to them. If they wish to go and do that, that's up to them, right? Nothing against them. They are free to go and do so. That's part and parcel of libertarianism, where we believe that you are free to be as an individual, whoever you want to be, so long as you're not infringing upon other individuals' rights. Where your question goes wrong, however, is when you bring in the children. For some strange reason, you assume that libertarianism somehow means that you are for the freedom of exploiting children. That isn't the case. Why? Because children are not old enough, they're not mature enough to make up their own mind on issues. The collectivists are at fault for all of their cultural Marxism and the aim of trying to create this egalitarianism. It didn't just end at this argument of gay marriage. It then moved on to one thing after the other and opened up a can of worms where they now try to create egalitarianism for even pedophiles, for crying out loud. That's a problem with collectivism. What's that got to do with individualism? Your individual rights have been subordinated in many regards. Where's the individual rights to protect children from all of these things? Indoctrination is taking place because of collectivism. Because collectivists are imposing their will collectively upon others. And they're using the state as an apparatus for the sake of these things. You could see that in the Scandinavian countries, where they push it through the education system, etc. The issue that you've got is the fact that they're indoctrinating the children, okay? Children have individual rights, and those rights should be protected. But since individual rights are being subordinated, all in the name of government legislation, government laws, etc., all in the name of this egalitarian nonsense. And who's the one that's propagating all of the egalitarian nonsense? Who is it that's propagating it all with all that cultural Marxism? Who's pushing all that nonsense through? The collectivists. So how then is collectivism the solution to your problems? Everything, all these anti-libertarian arguments that I see don't even make the slightest bit of sense. It's every bit as irrational as Lauren Southern's arguments against libertarianism where she goes on about big tech. Big tech is in the position it's in because of all the socialist government interventionism, because they're operating within a corporatist system. So how the hell is more government the solution to the problem when government is the cause of the problem? This is unbelievable. It really is unbelievable. Let's just move on, because it moves on to that argument. You see, the more I think about it, the more it appears to be capitalism which is the problem. Ho ho ho! Ho ho ho! I'll tell you something. You would pay the heavy price for thinking capitalism is the cause of your problems. Anybody who opposes capitalism is going to pay the heavy price. Why? Because capitalism's the only system that works. In other words, capitalism is the only system that is efficient. It's the only system that can be sustainable. When have you ever heard of a mixed economy that is sustainable? You've got to laugh at socialists. They say, capitalism caused the boom and bust cycle. That's all evil capitalism's fault. Even although it was all there, it's the evil capitalism, but they completely ignore the fact that it was down to all of their fixing of the interest rates, etc. Create a problem through all of their socialism, and then they say, look what capitalism did. This is a fantastic picture that illustrates it beautifully. Look at it. This is just fantastic. This really illustrates socialism in one. It does. It really does. It shows you exactly what everything is like, right? That's the truth. As you go on to say, it's something I never thought I would say, but it forces us to be individualists. I'm not sure what being individualist means. It's this myopic worldview where people think individualism simply means, every man for himself. Just propaganda that goes around based on individualism is just nonsensical. And people sadly fall for it. You go on to say, and gives all the big corporations a lot of say in legislation, regulations, and even shrinking the government hugely, still doesn't prevent a mob moving into an area and taking it over, and then they expand from there. I mean, again, that doesn't make logical sense. I mean, hypothetically speaking, what would you do if all land was privately owned then? Can they then just move in and just freely waltz all over someone's private property and say or do whatever the hell they like, whilst those private property owners own guns to protect their own land? I don't think so somehow. And even if they tried to do anything against the law, which would be against the law, their private property rights protected, regardless of whether there would be a government or not. Number one, they're incentivized to waltz into your country today because you've got an income tax where people are forced to subsidise them, to pay for their backside whilst they get free money, free cars handed to them on a plate and places given to them. That's why they come here, because they're getting everything for them on a plate. Are you trying to honestly tell me that if you removed the welfare state, that if you removed the social security, that if you took away the government taxation, where then are they going to get the money from to have all those things given to them on a plate? Telling me that they would have the same incentive to come here to Britain then? I don't think so somehow. The only type of people who would want to come here after that are the type of people who see opportunity to come live and work here and work hard. And what would be the problem with that? Nothing. The issue that you've got here today is to do with all the collectivism. Plus the fact the corporatist systems reduced your employment opportunity. Do you not understand that? They've over-regulated the private sector. So you've got a lack of competition. You're not living under a capitalist system. Don't know how many more times I need to say that to people. It's just unbelievable. It seems to be just like liberalism, except for some reason people will be more trusting, so the state will be irrelevant. Again, that's a nonsensical argument. It doesn't describe libertarianism at all. First of all, they're not even liberals. They're not liberals, right? There's nothing liberal about them. They support a position of, socialism to a varying extent. They support the strong government regulation over the private sector. Is it right? They're not liberal. They're very idealistic, very much like Marxists, where they support a position of the high tax rates, etc., and through all the taxation and the big welfare state and social security, they think they can have an open door to immigration at the same time. How the hell is that the same thing as a libertarian? You see, the difference is between someone who supports capitalism, understands history, and understands economics. They can make a critical argument against someone like Donald Trump and, the nationalists who supported such a position. I wasn't wholly against Donald Trump. I respected him on certain positions, such as reducing tax rates and deregulating to a varying extent. But all he did was reallocated spending from one area of the economy into another area of the economy. That's the difference between someone like myself and that of all your illiberals and all your, Marxists. They're incapable of doing that. All they can do is just throw around words like you're a racist, you're a this, you're a that. That's it. That's their idea of an argument. How on earth you could reach a position of thinking collectivism is going to solve your problems? I support a type of economy where the economy and the market is strongly left be to regulate itself so that supply can keep up with demand. That's a big, big difference to that of all these illiberals who ignore the laws of supply and demand. Don't understand where you were going with that. And it's like I said, most people, unfortunately, do not understand individualism and collectivism. Really do not. Under the real world of collectivism, you might like to believe in people power. You've probably seen, the symbolism, whether it's Black Lives Matter or it's Antifa or wherever it is, wherever you see the symbolism of that, and you'll see it everywhere, that symbolism is symbolism of socialism. That's what that is. It's the idea where they think it means power to the people. It doesn't mean power to the people. That isn't collectivism. All you're doing is giving power to the state. Funny enough, the very globalist banking corporate elite like Goldman Sachs, etc., and the likes of the Lehman Brothers and all the rest of them, who basically were the very fraudsters who done you over, and not to forget all the Bilderberg group, the very globalist elite that you complain about, they are collectivists. They're in that position because of collectivism. What takes away the power of these type of people? What do you think takes away the power of these people? What do you think takes away the power of these people? This is sad because there are many people out there like yourself who have that view because you're standing precisely against what essentially is the solution. Why would you complain about wage suppression from the immigration crisis but then at the same time think that collectivism is going to be some sort of solution? You can see today this mixed economy doesn't work. You're living under corporatism. Yeah, you get the point. I hope I've covered enough and you can make it that of what you wish, but I just thought I would put that out there. Any questions, any further questions, feel free to fire down below and I'll be sure to get back to you, but it's a very, very, very big mistake if you think that somehow collectivism is the solution and thinking that individualism has been the cause of your problems. And I'm just going to be honest with you here, right? I'm going to be brutally honest with you. See, most of those people out there who sadly are all these content creators and stuff like that, you see them, many of even these big YouTubers and stuff, most of them don't even understand what they're talking about. I noticed that when I sat and watched them even, good few years ago and it came to the whole rise of the, whatever you want to call it, the whole thing to do with the alt-right. None of them understand. They're that laughable. They sit there and piss and moan about Marxists. They complain about socialism and then at the same time they support strong national government. It's like a dog chasing its own tail round in circles. It's as bad as Marxism. Anyway, Thank you for watching. I shall talk to you later. Cheers.